Good afternoon to our honorable speakers, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Joining us from various places, Masal Khair, Urahebu Bikum. Let me introduce myself. My name is Angel Diaz, and I represent the EU-funded Enhanced EU-GCC Political Dialogue, Cooperation and Outreach Project, and I will be moderating the event. I would like to welcome you all to the webinar, Let's End the Plastic Pollution Crisis, Current State and Paths Towards Solutions, organized in partnerships with the Environment Society of Oman, European Environmental Bureau, and the European Union Delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the Sultanate of Oman. During the event, the speakers will analyze the challenges posed by plastic pollution and the efforts and initiatives taken to address the problem, and will be sharing to this end the EU experience. To help us to do that, we are delighted to have the intervention of His Excellency Patrice Simonet, Ambassador of the European Union Delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the Sultanate of Oman. Ms. Suad Al-Kharti, Executive Director of the Environment Society of Oman, Mr. Piotr Basak and Ms. Anna Desogus, experts from the European Environmental Bureau. Before starting the intervention of our distinguished speakers, let me quickly request your kind assistance on the following points. Please mute yourselves whenever you are not given the floor, and if possible, turn off your cameras during the main sessions. During the event, we will we'll also have time for discussion in smaller groups, but these will not be recorded. So these discussions will be unrecorded. However, the main session will be recorded. There is a sound voice that will warn you when it starts recording, and this will be available at the Environment Society of Oman YouTube channel. If you would like to have any questions or have comments, please raise your hand by clicking on the right button on your screen or send them through the chat box. Please, at the end of the workshop, we will share the link with a brief survey, and we would kindly ask you to complete it, allowing us to know your opinion and to improve future similar events. So to begin with, let's start off with our first speaker. I would like to welcome and give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Patrice Simonet. Excellency, thank you very much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I don't know how you hear me, loud and clear? Yes, thank you. Look, dear Executive Director Suad Al-Kharti, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I'm very honored and pleased to launch today the first webinar on joining forces to end the plastic pollution and on sharing EU experience with Oman in such an important field as the one on environment. Firstly, I would like to emphasize the importance of the Sultanate of Oman as a key partner for the European Union. As I was particularly honored to have presented my credentials to His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq of Oman last February, I'm happy to speak today on behalf of the European Union and its delegation to the Sultanate of Oman. We do appreciate the cooperation we have with the Sultanate for many areas, including climate change and transition towards green energy and economy. As you probably know, the EU Green Deal is a milestone in EU's policies. It aims at making Europe climate neutral by 2050 and at protecting our natural habitat, our planet, for generations to come, and without anyone to be left behind. That's our ambition, and we would like to work on it together with you. Today's webinar is one of the activities agreed upon under the EU-Oman Cooperation Arrangement signed between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Sultanate of Oman and the European External Action Service in 2018. The webinars were prepared with the European Environment Bureau experts in close cooperation with the European Society of Oman. I would like to express my special thanks to Suad Al-Arthi, Program Director of the Environment Society of Oman. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish to share our experience with the Environment Society of Oman, the Omani public, and oil and gas companies on how to encourage environmentally sustainable behavior of both consumers and producers through education and awareness raising. I hope that today's webinar and some best practice examples from the EU to achieve behavioral change regarding using single-use plastics will be inspiring. I sincerely hope that we can all work together on the green transition and that cooperation between the EU and Oman will further deepen. I would like now to wish you an interesting and fruitful webinar and some let's say enjoyment and fun as well. Let me thank you very much and end the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Next, I invite Ms. Suad Al-Hati, Executive Director of the Environment Society of Oman. Ms. Hati, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Your Excellency, ESO members, speakers, and members of the public, thank you for taking the time to join us today as we learn more about the plastic pollution crisis and open the doors to hear your feedback and input on the subject. We are honored to be collaborating with the European Union delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the Sultanate of Oman to raise awareness and understanding about key environmental issues on the topic of today being plastics. Given the long-standing experience that several EU countries have with regards to waste management, plastic pollution, and recycling, and our own intentions here in Oman to address these same issues, and the recent introduction on the ban on single-use plastic bags at the beginning of this year, we thought that it would be a very fitting subject to explore, looking into the current state of plastic pollution and solutions towards a circular economy and the role that consumers and society working hand in hand together with policy instruments. We are honored to have the support of the European Environmental Bureau to facilitate these webinars. The Environment Society of Oman was established in 2004 and remains the only environmental NGO in Oman with a mission to conserve Oman's natural heritage by influencing environmentally sustainable behaviors through education, awareness, and conservation. In doing so, we aim to support Oman's Vision 2040, which recognizes the importance of Oman's natural resources and environment. We believe that it is through forums and platforms such as these that we are able to promote and encourage a sustainable development culture amongst the public and corporate sectors here in Oman in order to conserve our beautiful natural heritage while also safeguarding human health. As we all know, these are inextricably tied. On Oman Environment Day this year, we launched the It's Time campaign, aiming to draw attention to the issues surrounding litter, single-use plastics, and recycling. And this webinar series supports our ambitions to provide information and promote the adoption of environmentally conscious community behaviors. With Plastic-Free July around the corner, having these webinars in June is very timely. Accepting alternatives to single-use plastics is an initial step, and we hope you enjoy the upcoming webinar and consider what more we can do as a society. The level of support that we have received so far in terms of registrations shows your willingness and desire to do more, and we look forward to hearing more from you throughout the series today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, for your encouraging intervention. Next, I invite Mr. Piotr Bakshak and Ms. Anna Desugus, who are experts from the European Environmental Bureau. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, shukran jazilan. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Yes, we have the slide now already on. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar. We will talk 2 hours today. We have lots of information to share with you. But I also want to say that this is the first webinar. There will be a second webinar next week where we'll go deeper and we'll cover more issues and more deeper if you are interested today. This webinar today will be, I will be presenting together with my colleague, Anna de Sogus, who is our partner at the EEB. And yes, once again, thank you for all the organization team to have this done. Now, let's go through first through the agenda. We have 3 parts of this webinar. First part will be the introduction. We'll talk about the plastic crisis. Second, the systemic solutions on company level, national, city level. And then the third part will be on the role of consumers and the society. Between each, after each of this part, we'll have a short interaction. So it means we will break into breakout rooms, but we will explain later how this will work. And at the end, of course, questions and answers to answer any remaining questions. So yes, to kick off, just wanted to say about us a little bit. We are the EEB, European Environmental Bureau. We are an NGO. We are a federation, the largest federation of environmental NGOs all over Europe and beyond. We also have members outside the EU. And we were established in 1974, so over 40 years now, working in Brussels. This is we sit here in Brussels. We work on European policies, basically almost all environmental issues we cover. But myself, with the team of circular economy, we cover, among others, plastics and waste issues. So we are happy to speak also with you, with the Society of Amman, to explain our approach here. We have been working on very closely with the European stakeholders, with the European Commission and the Parliament on the development of those policies that we will talk about today, and also next week. And also through our membership, that is over 170 NGOs all over Europe, we assisted them and we work together on national campaigns, on implementing the changes, but also bottom-up activities by the society. So yes, now to the point. Let's start with the first part of the presentation, which is, yes, 1 second, which is the plastic crisis. Anna, my colleague, partnering also on trainings at the EEB, the floor is yours, and then I will take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Piotr, and once again, welcome everyone to today's webinar from my side as well. So as mentioned, we'll start with a very quick overview of the issue, as we really want to focus on solutions today and what to do to address the issue, but we thought we just want to give you a quick, brief overview of where we are when it comes to the global plastic pollution crisis. So first of all, it's important to stress that it's now so much more than the plastic we see on beaches, and certainly it's visible on some of the beaches in Oman as well, but it's so much more than just the plastic we see, whether it's the ocean surface or the beach. It's also plastic now that gets to all the different elements of our natural ecosystems. It's affecting human health, it's affecting all ecosystems and contributing also to climate crisis because of the emissions related to plastic at the different stages from production all the way to end of life. So just to give you a few slides to kind of illustrate how widespread plastic pollution is right now. There was, for example, plastic found in 5 locations within the Arctic Circle in the ice. So it really shows you that no location is immune, as of course this plastic was not used there, but it traveled there. And that's because there is now pollution in so many different places. Another example, plastic found by scientists in soil, which impacts all the different microorganisms in soil. And as we know, soil is really living and it has so many functions, both when it comes to producing food, but also when it comes to storing carbon and helping us regulate climate. So potential risks from the impact of microplastics getting into the soil are also something we should be aware of. farther, and some more examples. Plastic floating in the wind. That was research done by researchers in France, where there were microfibers, so micro elements of plastics from clothing, from packaging, found very high, floating in the air. And then similarly in the United States, plastic that was actually literally raining down, coming down with rain, lots and lots of microplastic particles. So even the very beautiful places, protected areas, places where plastic is not directly used or consumed, are no longer immune, and plastic pollution gets there. And that goes for air, water, soil, even Arctic ice, as shown in many other places. The most visible probably is the plastic pollution we see in seas, in rivers, in the ocean, on the beaches. And this is familiar, unfortunately familiar view for so many of us. But we have to be aware that it is now not only the big pieces that we see, but also the microplastics, and also a huge amount of plastic that actually sinks and is at the bottom of the sea. And that's over 90% of plastic pollution in the ocean. It is not visible, it is at the bottom of the sea. And researchers and scientists keep actually discovering new forms of plastics and new places of plastic pollution, and new places where plastic gets, which is so sad and shocking and sobering. So one recently described was something called plastic crust, which is plastic that washes off and stays on rocks on the Portuguese island, one of the Portuguese islands, Madeira. And so it really shows you how many different forms, maybe also many not the most obvious ones. The impact of this pollution being so widespread, so global, entering and influencing all the different parts of the ecosystem is massive. When it comes to marine life, annually we see around 100,000 deaths of sea mammals, and it's estimated that around 1 million birds die annually because of plastic pollution, be it because of ingestion of plastic or entanglement. And unfortunately, these numbers really high show us how massive the problem is. Now, when it comes to sources of plastic in the ocean, how does the plastic waste get there? There are many different sources. Some of the main ones listed here on the left: direct dumping, so places where plastic waste is directly dumped into the ocean or the rivers. Open landfills, especially close to the coast, not properly designed, where wind can also make a lot of this waste travel. Fishing litter, something that staff at the ESO can probably tell you a lot about, and its huge negative impact. Shipping litter and all the different litter waste coming from inland via rivers, wind, sewage system. Then on the right, you see also different sources of microplastics. So whether it's the microplastics that come from, for example, our clothes. So most of the clothes we wear these days have synthetic textiles in them, and as we wash our clothes in the washing machine, microfibers are released, and that ends up in our oceans. Tires, we all use cars, and especially when we brake and when we accelerate, the way we use the tires, kind of dust is created as the tire wears off. And this dust is again an example of microplastics that again is washed and ends up in the oceans. Also microplastics in personal care products, so cosmetics, where in the European Union currently there is a process going on to actually ban kind of intentional use of microplastics in cosmetics. So hopefully by the end of this year, we will see this in the new laws as well. So once again, not to get too much into detail, but just to remind you how massive, how widespread the problem is, and that it's so much more than what we see. In the right small circle here on the right, you see that what we see on beaches is actually 5% of the total plastic waste. 1% is what we see on ocean surface, but 94% of pollution is actually plastic that sinks down, that we don't see, that is on the seafloor. So massive impacts, negative impacts on marine life, but also other impacts on the economy, climate, and human health, about which Piotr will tell you a bit more.
Yes, very shortly. Isn't it scary? I think it's quite scary. but the impacts are also wider. They are impacts less visible, like on the climate. Production of plastic also impacts the climate during production, during the use, and of course during also the treatment and disposal. There are also human health issues. Plastics is chemicals, okay? And of course, there are migrations into the food. And of course, there are also impacts on the economy, the litter, cleaning up the beaches, or also visible litter that is disencouraging tourists. So there are losses, especially in the tourism sector and also fisheries sector. At the European Union, that was the Parliament, European Parliament slide. The European Parliament is also quite active on the issue. That later also sparked more work at the Commission and other institutions. But yes, speaking about the impact on human health, this is an issue because plastics does not fully degrade. It only disintegrates into microplastics, and in fact, you may have heard the news that in 2050 we will have more plastic than fish in the ocean if we don't stop this. And there is also migration and into the food coming from plastic. Also, each phase of plastic production value chain, during disposal, during transport of plastic pellets, during landfilling, during burning, open burning, but also in the incinerator, there are emissions, not only CO2 emissions of burning, but also leaching into the soil, leaking into the soil, and also other emissions during burning. And reprocessing also has its impact. It all sounds very scary, but also we do recognize plastic has its role in the economy. But yes, we have to make sure that we use it in a correct way and we don't overuse it and consume it. But yes, why we got there? Why we produce so much plastic? We are losing plastic for a very short time. We are generating a lot of plastic waste. More and more packaging is turning to plastic rather than using the good old reusable bottle. We'll speak more about that. But we can see that the system is broken. It's a linear system. It's not circular. It's based on take, make, waste. And the eternal material used for a very short application is an absurd from the design perspective. We'll talk also more about that. But the base problem of this is that the plastic is cheap and the oil is cheap. It's true. In the last 50 years, we increased the production of plastic by 20 times, and it's going only to increase even more. There has been very little plastic that has been recycled so far. In the closed loop, actually only 2%. Then most of it is still being disposed either to landfill or into incineration or simply leaked into the environment, as Anna has explained. And this is also economic absurd, I would say. We are losing 95% of the value of plastic just after its first use. So from economic perspective, it does not make sense really to use so much plastic. Of course, it will have also its implication on oil and gas, but that we will cover more in the next webinar as well. But all the predictions show that the more if we go this pathway, then we will consume more. There will be more plastic leakage and more plastic being stocked in the ocean or everywhere in the environment, as shown by Anna. So I think now we just finished the first part showing the crisis. Plastic crisis, and we would like to now turn to you and to break into breakout rooms so that we can hear from you. Maybe Anna, you want to describe how it will work?
Yeah, sure. So after this brief introduction from us about the problem, we'd love for you now to also discuss it from your perspective. What are your observations regarding plastic pollution in Oman? So what do you think are the key impacts on the environment, on the economy, tourism, maybe on health? So we will do this in breakout rooms. For those of you who have not used it before, it's very simple. You don't need to do anything, but in a moment, automatically, we will create small rooms and you will automatically be assigned to one, and you will be in a group with around 10 people. and there will be one moderator from the ESO. We will have 10 minutes in these smaller groups to just discuss this topic, your observations about plastic pollution in Oman, and then automatically you will come back into this main room. So you don't really need to do anything, just be careful not to kind of end session and not exit the whole webinar.
Hello, everyone. If you wonder what's happening, that means that now everybody comes back to the plenary session after breakout rooms. I have visited through a few of them. Great discussions. Thank you very much for that. But first, before we go to the part 2, which speaks about some solutions, and I know many of you already touched upon solutions, but before that, we wanted to ask few of the groups, the representatives of the ESO, if some very remarkable, different points of views or also new types of plastic pollution have been there that you've seen, that participants have reported to you. We don't need to go through all the groups, but whoever wants to say 1 minute, 2 minutes, please go ahead.
Hi, it's Olivia. I was in group 1, so why don't I kick us off and we can maybe move around them numerically. So we had a small group, but we all recognized that we have borne witness to an increasing issue on plastic pollution, not just on our beaches, but further afield. We explored a little bit about why we thought that was, and honestly, we didn't necessarily have any answers. We felt that as a society, the kind of social norms of the majority of people here, as dictated by their religion, is to have be very mindful of keeping things tidy and respectful of your communities. But it is still a problem, and we were talking about what we might need to do. We recognize that there's an opportunity to empower our youth for change. We also recognize that there are different communities where outreach might be necessary. We touched on at the end, possibly working or recognizing an issue among the fishing communities. And we also wondered whether some kind of social experiment to really present people with the problem might help us. So we questioned whether people really understand the scale of the litter problem, because we have such fantastic services from the municipalities that clean our beaches. So would people be up for putting the municipality on hold for a week and seeing the real impact of litter on our beaches if they weren't tidied every morning before we all enjoy them? Or whether we should perhaps think about some fines for visible littering. So that was just some of the thoughts that were shared from the first group.
Yeah, I can share from group 2. This is Saad. Our group highlighted the fact that this is a global issue, and similarly, the same issues that are being faced globally are also being faced in Oman. And as countries move towards best practices, Oman as well should move towards this. There was also a highlight of the severe impact that is being seen and the big danger to marine life. And there was some discussion on the threats and the sources that might be coming from shipping sources, the importance of education, and particularly education when it comes to fishermen, which I think was also highlighted in Olivia's group. The fact that Oman has recently picked up on this, and that the ban on single-use plastic bags is an initial step. However, the issue still remains that plastics are being found in remote areas. Perhaps there's either lack of facilities for collection of garbage, or a lack of enough awareness. So once again, awareness and education are important. And also we started to touch on the issue of infrastructure when it comes to segregation of waste and recycling.
Also from my side, I was in room 5. Main 2 points I think that we need to, it's important to mention. They mentioned that the majority of people, they don't know really the impact, or they don't see the impact of plastic on their health, on the environment. Maybe they know about the plastic and they know that it is harmful, but they don't see it, they don't really realize it. And there is a need to educate the families about it. The second point is that about laws and regulation, that maybe we have some regulation and laws for littering, but this regulation are not really enforced. I think this is the main 2 points we need to mention.
It's interesting, you're already moving towards solutions, which is what we're going to do now. So it's great that this is what we want to talk about, how to solve it. And I would say if there is something really different from what has been said, then please feel free to still speak up, any ESO moderators. But if we've covered most of it, then we would probably move slowly to solutions, just keeping an eye on time. So is there something else that was mentioned that was different from what was said already?
Hi, everyone. Just one quick point that was mentioned that was a little different from everything else. So we've had a discussion about how it seems to be an issue of habit and way of life, and it's more so an issue of psychology. So that's just something a little bit different, that we would not need to target younger generations as well as empowering youth and changing their psychology to help future generations in targeting this issue. Yeah, thank you.
And just one more thing, my group had similar thoughts as the other groups, and just one more thing, that they think that the thicker plastic bags, because we banned plastic bags, but now they produced thicker plastic bags, which we think that it will cause even more damage to the environment than the ones before. Yeah.
So the worry that the ban kind of has gaps, that now some people just use thicker bags, but they still use them as single-use bags, and they might still end up in the environment, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's
Okay,
right.
thank you very much for all the feedback, everyone. And I'm just going to share the screen now so we can continue with the presentation. And Piotr will start with what we really want to hear about, which is the solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I visited a few breakout rooms already. I see that you are very aware, actually, community here. A lot of those questions you asked will be tackled later today or even next week on bans, on policies. One remarkable thing, the breakout rooms, the first now, was more about facts, how much you see the pollution happening. And I just got a fact. This was about facts. And I wanted, we have our colleague Stefan that also brought a fact saying that the UN recently, they said that Middle East and Africa is the second region in the world with the highest increase of plastic consumption after India. So you see that this is a fact. This is going to happen. This is going to increase much more. And one thing that also came to me, and it's moving me to this second part, somebody mentioned that there are people cleaning up beaches, but somebody also said that there will be never enough people to clean all the rubbish. I find it very interesting. And look at this slide now. When you at your flat, you come after the whole day and you come and you see that the flat is flooded. What do? Will you start mopping up the water? Will you start meeting the neighbors and trying to discuss what to do? Will you, or maybe you will set up a training for the kids to say how to close the tap correctly in the future? Maybe that's too late, no? So is awareness raising also the first solution we have to do? Probably not. What you do first is you run to the tap and you try to stop this flooding. The same thing is happening with plastic. We are flooded by plastic, and the only way to stop it is to first stop the tap, close the tap of plastic that is invading our spaces. And here we will talk about few solutions, systemic solutions. This is the main systemic solution. You know the zero waste hierarchy. It's actually part of the European legislation as well. It starts with prevention, redesigning the products or the delivery systems of products by reducing the consumption of materials, also and resources. Therefore also reduction of generations of waste. We are trying to reuse as much as possible. Then recycling, composting, material recovery. What is unacceptable in this zero waste hierarchy, waste management hierarchy, is landfilling and incineration. This is also part of the big issue of Europe is circular economy, which is an opposite of which is an opposition to the linear economy, where we take, make, and dispose resources. And the circular economy, it's all about looping back into the system. And maybe this is also one of the systemic solutions. So yes, when we speak about plastic, today the webinar is about plastic, how to transform this circular economy, this new systemic thinking into plastics. Well, it is a report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I invite you to check. They have found out that in order to really apply the systemic solution, we have to redesign fundamentally and innovate 1/3 of all plastic packaging that is available on the market. Okay, so it means redesign the system of the delivery, maybe change it into another product as well. Maybe do not use packaging at all. There are solutions. Second, 20% of these plastics should be redesigned in a way that we use reusable solutions. And then remaining half has to be increased, has to be improved so that it's easier to recycle. As I said, maybe around 10% of waste of plastic has been recycled so far, with packaging as a bit more, but still not enough. We need to fully close the loop, close this loop of plastic in order to reduce reduce littering of plastic. Anna?
Yes, so I will take over here to really just look more specifically and give you some practical examples. So what does it mean to implement this? So if we want to really redesign and completely change some of the solutions so that we can move away from single-use plastic, how can it be done? What is already done in different countries in the European Union? What are companies doing? So 3 important things that I want to stress. If you look at the top here of the slide, there's 3 strategies: elimination, reuse, and material circulation. So what Piotr has just described, the different ways of addressing the problem, it's very important to look at them in this order, in this hierarchy. So first of all, you should see, can the packaging be completely eliminated? Secondly, can we make it reusable instead of single use? And only in the 3rd place, we look at keeping the material in the loop, whether it's via recycling or composting. So the hierarchy here is very important. And it's important to think about it at the very beginning when companies are designing products and services, because it's estimated that 80% of the environmental impact of a product is determined at the design stage. So many questions that can be asked. What is the material? So material choice. Is it single use or reusable? Is it toxic or is it safe? How is it going to stay in the system? Looking at the particular territory, what is the infrastructure in that territory when it comes to collection, sorting, and recycling, and so on. So all these questions should be asked at the stage of designing. And finally, looking holistically. So again, Piotr mentioned changing the packaging, but maybe also changing the product, so it does not require packaging. So it's important to not only look at packaging, but at the same time look at the product and the business model, because sometimes if we change the product or the business model, the packaging requirements will also change and will allow us to innovate and move away from single-use plastics. So a few very specific real-life examples from different companies that we see sell their products within the European Union. An example for elimination. So you can either directly eliminate or you can innovate to replace it with something. The cans you see here, before they were wrapped in foil, so you were buying, let's say, 4 products for a certain price. They were all together wrapped in foil. Now some big chains of supermarkets are just completely removing this foil. You still have the deal that it costs that amount of money, but it's not wrapped. The beer cans or other cans, instead of the foil that they were wrapped in, they have little glue dots that keep the cans together, but at the same time, it does not cause an issue for recycling the cans. So another example of innovation. And other innovations when it comes to fruit and veg, we see so many examples of over packaging, and that also goes for food, not only, also for other products, for cosmetics and different products. But here, the top right photo, you see some oranges packed, and obviously we all know oranges already have wonderful natural packaging that keeps them quite safe. But also innovative ways. So on the bottom here from the right, you see something that looks like a tattoo. It's actually not a tattoo, it's not ink, it's done with light. Or the solution in the middle called Appeal. It's applied in spray and it allows the veg or fruits to stay fresh for longer. Or innovative change that is about location of production. In-farm is a system for growing leaves and different salads in the store, so you don't have all these very long chain of distribution and transport, so you don't need so much packaging. Of course, we need to be aware of other impacts, so we need to look at energy consumption, at water use, and so on, so that by solving one thing, we don't create another problem. But if we innovate correctly and well, we can avoid any possible new negative impacts. A few more examples of eliminating packaging and switching to reusable packaging. We've seen across the European Union a kind of trend of more and more zero waste shops. So shops where products are sold in bulk and into reusable packaging. There are different companies doing that. And luckily, we are also now seeing not only small shops do that, but more and more increasingly big supermarket chains also trialing these solutions and opening these kind of sections where people can buy in bulk. And that has many benefits. It has benefits for the customer. You can buy only the amount you need. The amount is not determined by the producer, but you decide how much you buy. Often it's lower price because you don't need to pay for the packaging, and it's improved user experience. So the example you see here on the right, Loop, testing in Paris with the chain Carrefour. You have reusable packaging and you either order online and then with your next order you give back the packaging and you get new, or you can also buy in reusable packaging in the shop. And if you see these, the packaging, whether it's glass or steel, aluminum, whatever, it often is much nicer than your single-use packaging. So it's also a nicer experience for the customer. Refill stations, another example of buying in bulk into reusable packaging. Different companies doing it. Here's some examples from the Czech Republic, from France, from Germany, from Poland. The thing that we need now is to really scale this up. So we're showing you some wonderful examples from the EU, but we would lie if we said this is how every shop looks. Not yet, but this is the direction we hope. Well, it is already going when you look at the laws, when you look at the innovations. So the key now is for these innovations and these reusable solutions to be scaled up mainstream so they're easily available for everyone. And that's when we're going to see a real impact on material use reduction, waste generation reduction, and pollution reduction. Some more examples. These are options for reusable food packaging. So definitely during the pandemic, we've seen more and more people ordering food online, having food delivered to home, and that caused, again, an increase in waste from single-use food packaging. And now whether it's plastic or whether it's cardboard covered with some plastic layer or whether it's something else, it is still a lot of single-use packaging. Some a little bit easier to recycle, some not possible to recycle, but generally the best way to go is reusable. And here are the few examples. Also on the right here in the bottom right corner, an example of elimination, a soup that is simply salt in freshly baked bread that is shaped as a cup. So rather than eating a soup in a bowl and having a bread aside, you just drink the soup, eat the bread, and there is zero packaging. So there are lots and lots of other examples. We don't have enough time to really go now into too many, but just to show you that it's already happening and there are so many innovations and it can really work. Also back to the pandemic, I mentioned that we've seen an increased generation in all the different types of single-use packaging, takeaway packaging. But what is important to say is that with the right hygiene processes, with the right hygiene protocol of disinfecting and washing reusables, they are safe to use. So just as in the restaurant you eat with cutlery that has been used by others or a normal plate, similarly with these solutions, with the right hygiene processes, there is no need to kind of worry, and they can be very much safe during times even like the one we are going through right now. So lots of hopefully inspiring examples here. Also dissolvable cleaning tablets. So you just buy the tablets and then at home you add water in a reusable spray bottle and you can use it. So when we were talking about changing the product, this is a great example where you don't sell a liquid cleaning product, but you just sell a small tablet, right? Why sell water, transport water, and have huge packaging if you can just sell the essence? Also in other areas when it comes to shipping, still not mainstream, but more and more examples of reusable packaging for e-commerce, for transport, for shipping products. And that is so important, as once again, we see an increase in online shopping and online orders that comes with so much packaging. And I'm sure you've all experienced that. So summing up once again, very important to look holistically. Don't just look at making the packaging slightly smaller or slightly thinner. These kind of improvements, they are just not enough at the stage that we're at. We have such a big challenge that we need to step up and make really radical redesign changes to the system of how we consume and how products are offered to us. And I mentioned that it all has to be determined at the very early stage of design. One of the big questions there is material choice. So what material do we go with? Is plastic generally always bad, and is glass always better? These questions are very complex and we tend to want a quick answer. There is no quick answer, but Piotr is going to comment a bit more, I think, on that slide and these questions around material choice.
Yes, indeed. You mentioned material choice as one of them, but maybe material choice is also one only incremental change instead of changing the whole delivery system. But okay, of course, there are materials that have better life cycle analysis footprint than others. But first, as you said in your hierarchy, prioritization is the elimination, right? Whenever it's possible. Then if we really need single use, and there might be situations during festivals, why not to use biodegradable? But only in a situation if we have biodegradable materials separate collection available, and the material is locally sourced. Maybe you have banana leaves. I never been in Oman, but I guess that might be. But also for water. Now, I don't know the situation of Oman tap water, but there might be city fountains or fountains in the business, in the companies, in schools, at schools, rather than just handing a bottle and plastic bottle to everyone. Same if you think about replacing a water container for a can or biodegradable bottle. This is maybe not the solution because it's still single-use material that is only used once, and immediately the value of the material drops very much down after the first use. So let's think elimination and reuse as a solution. I will go
Having said that, yeah, I will just add that, of course, what we've just shown you, there were many reusable options that were made of plastic, right? So the reusable bowls or the reusable shipping packaging. So we really need to make the best out of the great qualities of plastic, and one of it is durability. So if it is so super durable that we know it will stay in the environment forever, that's how we should use it in these very long repeated uses, right? So we really, what we want to stress, because we know plastic is going to stay, and there are certain applications, whether in the medical equipment that is not single use, but the more complex machines or cars or airplanes and so on. But if we look at packaging and food, there is so much more, like I was saying, elimination, reuse, and if plastic, then in a very smart designed way for an extremely long lifetime of the product.
Lifetime. Thank you for reminding that indeed duration and reusability of plastic and plastic packaging is possible, and that may be a way to go for also for Oman. But let's go to tackling the issues of plastic pollution by at national level as well. I know that in Oman you have had this plastic bag ban that didn't work really, as far as I know. We'll talk about that during the next call, but there are similar legislations all over the world, and we see that by national legislation you really cover the whole territory of a country. So these policies have a real impact. They are really the most impactful, rather than just a small, rather city bottom-up solutions or corporate solutions. So country levels are very important, and this is what happened at the EU. We have the single-use plastic directive. We will talk about it next week. But just to say that there are bans, there are targets to reduce consumption, there are targets to increase reusable solutions. There are also measures to increase collection, such as deposit return systems, and a very important policy, which is extended producer responsibility. This is too complicated now to speak today. I invite you for the webinar on the 29th of June. But just one thing about deposit return systems. Those of you who travel for sure have seen in different countries in Europe the deposit return systems, where you bring back your container. It can be for plastic can, glass bottle as well. And it's working. And it's working for reusable containers, first of all, but also for single use, so that to capture them and avoid them being littered around. And this is the situation in Germany, for example, where over 90, basically almost 98% of packaging is collected. That brings huge savings in terms of cleaning up the beaches, riversides, parks in the cities. So there are savings for citizens, for all of us, you and me, thanks to the fact that we have deposit return systems, so that the packaging is collected well. At cities level, there are also solutions. Cities should encourage and support local producers through local tax rebates and green public procurement, so that when we go to a festival, we don't see single-use cups anymore. Here, where I live in Brussels, there is a ban on using single-use cups at the festivals. But there are also other points, like using balloons at the cities. This is a photo from Gdańsk, from Poland. City functions and festivals organized with less plastics, proper collection for recycling via implementation of financial incentives, and clear and locally tailored communications with the community. One point that country and city has to implement is separate collection of waste. And I know this is maybe not yet developed in Oman so well for all the streams, but here in Europe, that is the case. And collection of plastic is usually financed by the extended producer responsibility schemes. So producers are paying for the scheme to collect it separately, and they have targets to attain. So this is, encouraging the economy also to go towards separate collection, and therefore avoiding plastic littering. There are more examples. I invite you to check in this great report by Zero Waste Europe, Zero Waste Cities, where they show more examples, but we will go more into policies next week. Just one example that is, I know personally, from the city of Ljubljana. Imagine the city waste management company owned by the municipality is not only dealing with waste, they are also selling liquids like olive oil, wine, water, juice, no, water not, but juice, milk. They set up a point where people can come with their own packaging and they buy per milliliters. Therefore, the city company, waste management company, is delivering on the first most important priority of the waste hierarchy, which is, yes, prevention. That's the priority, and that's how they are doing their job in the city, reducing packaging and reducing waste, plastic waste. So yes, we end up with the second part. Now over to you. What solutions are implemented in Oman? Do you know? At city level, national level, yes, or at corporate level. We can talk about that in the breakout rooms, same as before, for 10 minutes, and then to listen back from you on the ideas that you know are happening in different cities. Let's not only talk about Muscat, let's try to see other cities as well.
This is the final one. Let's see what you reflected on in this session. So whoever is ready to share from the groups, please go ahead.
Anna, it's Olivia. I'm happy to start us off. I think 2 points to share from our group. The first is, we were thinking about individual actions we can take, and highlighting that we shouldn't necessarily wait for a government solution to change our behavior. So just because there isn't necessarily a huge amount of choice in terms of recycling at the moment, that doesn't stop us starting to change our behavior at home and looking at how we segregate our waste. If nothing else, that will highlight to us just how much waste we are producing, and hopefully help us identify where we can reduce, but it'll also prepare us for when solutions are there. On a related topic, we wanted to perhaps look at how we can raise awareness about the solutions that are here and eliminate some concerns about what necessarily happens with the waste that is segregated at the moment. So something that ESO might look at. The second point, which I think is a really important point that Zainab raised, is the power of educating yourself as an individual on a topic and finding ways to engage your friends and family and educate them. So I think as individuals, that's probably the most powerful thing we can do, is educate ourselves and share the information that we learn. Not preach, not dictate, but you know, when you think you have a ready audience, or find a way of illuminating a topic that resonates with an individual, and help spreading that awareness.
Thank you very much. Probably some of it might have also come up in other rooms. If there are other things,
yes,
please share.
I can share from my group. We discussed the importance of education, and we had a university teacher, Susan, who mentioned that what helped her students was getting them to record the plastics that they use in a book, everything, whether it's something disposable or something like, you know, using a plastic toothbrush. And then that was for the first month. And then following that, in the second month, they tried to reduce the plastic and take action. And this has influenced her former students up to today. Someone else also shared the influence of the importance of social media and trying to use your voice as an individual in social media platforms. And there was a mention of a video on YouTube called The Story of the Spoon, which I personally haven't seen, but it sounds like it's quite interesting and it has changed people's perceptions. Perhaps that's something.
I posted it in the chat, so you can save the chat and watch it later on.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so this is a summary, but then also some discussions on the importance of expanding out from the individual level, addressing things at the corporate as well as government levels.
Yeah, thank you very much. We still have a few minutes for feedback if there is anything that hasn't been said yet. If there's anyone else who would like to share from your group.
In my group, they also discussed the importance of education, and they suggested perhaps maybe we add like subjects that focus on environmental awareness and environmental issues. They also mentioned that like smaller associations like the Oman Surfing Association, that they constantly encourage surfers to clean up the beaches and yeah, and so on. So these are the 2 points from my group.
Thanks, Juhaina. Anyone else? If not, then we are pretty much very much on time. So we still have time for our final Q&A. Should we go into that now? Let me just see. Or do
we should, yes.
Yeah, so maybe let me share our screen one last time, because actually that brings us to the kind of official end of the presentation and what we had prepared. So thank you very much for your participation and for listening to what we've prepared. And maybe just a quick reminder before we go to the Q&A at this stage, as mentioned earlier, there is going to be a survey so we can learn from this event and hear your opinions. The link will be posted in the chat in a second. So if you can find a moment to fill in the post-event survey, that would be great. And yes, so maybe we can move to the final kind of open part of further reflections, maybe key takeaways you want to share, and also any questions that might still come up. And Piotr, there was the one question we left for later. Should we kick off with that?
Indeed, yes. So we move to question and answer. Just to remind, the survey will be in the chat. Can I ask to put that in? And the recording will be stopped now.